All right, so now that our sites are starting to kind of come together, let's look at where we're at. I'm going to open my travel site. I'm going to double click my index. I'm going to take a peek at what it looks like. We got a lot of this stuff styled correctly. So we now have our images floating properly, our text box is floating properly, we have a banner, we have our first section. Now what we need to do is style this text. And this is sort of an open-ended kind of problem. So let's go into Dreamweaver and let's look at that. And let's look into some of the ways that we can style the text. So we do need to go into the style section to do this. One thing we can do is actually in our body rule, you'll notice that the body rule doesn't have a dot, it doesn't have a hashtag. That's because websites know there's already in HTML, it understands that this body rule is going to apply to pretty much the whole website. So we can actually, I believe we can come in here, otherwise we're going to use our paragraphs tags, and we can start typing. So if we start typing font, you'll notice a couple different things come up. So things like font family, font kerning, font stretch, font style. I don't even know what font synthesis is. Font weight. I'm sure font size is in there. All of these are in there, so you can scroll through and kind of see what you're looking for. So let's try adjusting the font size and seeing what happens. So I'm going to click font size, font dash size, and let's make it like super huge for just a second, just to see. So we'll make it font size. Let's do like 6M. That's kind of like a weird size, but you'll see like, whoa, that thing just got huge. So a lot of times people use EM. It's a type measurement that stems back to letterpress printing. I'm just using it just so you can see that got giant. That's not what we need. But we can come back and use more typical things like 30 point. And you can see that's still also huge. We can also, let's try, typically you don't need to go too big with your type. Simply because if someone can't see it, they can zoom in, and that's a function of the browsers, and that it will make the type larger for you. It will create that responsiveness to it. But I did define the font size. I can also change things like the font color, I believe.
So do you always have to end up with this semicolon?
Yes, when it comes to the rules like this. If we go to color, I think just color will do it. I don't remember all the rules. This is something where you kind of can look it up. Let's try making it golden. There we go. So just plain color. You don't need to put like font color. Will change all of the typeface colors there. So I'm just going to show you a couple that I know, and that way when you go back and look at this video, you can look at them. So font dash size don't say hyphen. Font dash size colon 14 point semicolon. That's one way. You can also change the color, and here I've just put goldenrod. Let's actually change that maybe to something else. I think if we double click, we should be able to maybe change it. I don't remember how to get the color picker to come back up other than just deleting it and then going back here. So to get those little tooltips to come up, sometimes you just got to rewrite the rule, and then when it pops up, you have a little more power. Let's make it something just a little bit more sensible looking. We'll go with this midnight blue. So now we have midnight blue type that is size 14. We can actually also write something like line spacing, I believe, or it might be called line height in this. Yep, looks like it's line height. And we can put, let's see if point measurements will work. There we go, that works as well. So you can see by doing that, I actually spaced out the line height, and that looks actually a little more elegant. So if you have any familiarity with designing, in InDesign or whatever, if I want it to be double spaced, I just double the size of the font. And now it's nicely double spaced, it looks a little better, it's purpley colored, all of that. We can also change the actual font, and if we type in, I think it's font, just font, I think will do it as well. And you can see when I clicked font, it brought up a lot of different things. Small caps, and then also a variety of font families. If you're trying to pick a really custom typeface, it's a little more complicated. You have to do an @font face declaration. I don't want to get into that right now. It's more advanced than you need to stress about. But when you type in your font, you'll see all these different things come up. So I can make them italicized if it's possible. Let's see if that will work. Okay, so this font didn't have an italicized version, so when I hit oblique, nothing happened. That's okay. Let's go back. Instead, let's scroll. We can select a different font family. I don't know what this one is, so I'm going to click it, and I'm going to see what happens. Does it change? Huh, why are you being suspicious to me? Alright, we'll try one more time. It should change, but it might be because I haven't clicked into it. That's a possibility as well. So let's scroll down. We'll try well, no, that's too close to what I have. Let's pick. We'll do Consolas. Click that. It looks like something's a little off here because it's not in quotes. So let's try putting that in quotes and see if that helps. So when you see the type show up in white, it usually means something is not the way it needs to be. We'll look into it if that's kind of not happening the way it needs to happen. I think something's a little off with that declaration. I'll look into it. It's probably because somewhere else it already knows what it thinks it wants the font to be, and I'm going to have to go look into the code. I'm not a code expert. But you can see that there are a lot of things you can adjust, and these are all really easy to look up. So I changed the color, I changed the line height, I changed the size. I know we can change the font. If you're unsure what to do, you can always do something like this, like font styling CSS, and you can see that comes right up. We're going to find all kinds of things. So from our website, W3 Schools, we can actually go right to a page and learn a lot about what we can actually do. So font family property gives it a fallback. The reason when I added this font, one thing I want to mention, and it created 20 different fonts, is if someone's computer doesn't have this font, it needs backups to tell it what to become in case that first one isn't available to it. So that's one thing that's kind of in there. So we can do font family, font style, normal, italic, oblique. So that's like italics, or that's oblique is just when it's slanted but not italic, which is its own typeface. Font size, we can do font size with M here, use a combination of percent and M. Font weight, font variance, more examples. So there's a lot of different things you can do with your font. You can also go to text and see that there's some text formatting, so like body color blue, H1 color green, text alignment. So let's say you were one of the people that wanted your text to be centered. If you just look through this on CSS on W3 Schools, you can find it right under text that the code is text-align center. So let's try that. So I'm going to go text-align center semicolon. And now my text is centered. So very, very, very easy stuff. Really, once you start to understand the basic concepts of like how CSS works and how your objects work, it's not that difficult to learn to like look up something you want to happen. For example, if I wanted rounded corners on this box, I can actually do that. There's a lot of little ways I can jazz that up. So that will probably be like the extra credit for this assignment, is for you to go add some unique styling to some of your items. So like even for this box, if I want to add it, let's actually go see if we can add some rounded corners. It's really not super hard. I have a feeling if I look around, it's probably going to be called this borders here maybe. Rounded borders. Let's see. So you can see you can add, dotted line borders, all of this kind of stuff, inset borders, etc. But if you're never sure, all you have to do is go rounded corner CSS. I just want to give you some of the independence to figure some of this out on your own. So once again, to be back to W3 Schools, it looks like it was over here, rounded corners. But you can add it with the property border radius. So border radius looks like that. So let's try this. I'm going to copy this border radius 25 pixels. I'm going to go find this CSS rule, which if I look for it, is welcome image. I'm going to add border radius 25 pixels, and we're going to see if it works. Now, one thing about some of this, the more advanced CSS, is occasionally it won't show up until it's in the browser. And the reason that is it's actually the browsers that are rendering that figure. So I don't know why that may not be true, may be true. It may be that I'm missing part of the property, which it looks like I am. I'll have to double check on that one. I know I've done it plenty of times. I think I might be forgetting some of the information for it, but I'll look. But yeah, so it's a great opportunity to kind of try what you want to do to get different effects. And you can see you can actually change the border radius so that it's wider or like different on different things. So this is what even though it's still boxes and boxes, you can kind of fake them into something else. So you can see that's one. We'll look back into why that's not popping up exactly as I anticipate. It really should automatically do it, but it might be missing a little bit of something there before it understands what to do. So that's how you edit your fonts. That's basically it. Just adding the properties that you want. I'll look into why this one is giving me some trouble and why the border radiuses are giving me some trouble. Let me see if there's anything else I want to go over with this. Yes, actually, let's go over our header and our paragraph tags really quick. So if you remember reading your book, there's different things like headers and paragraph tags. Now, your paragraph tag is something you can wrap around your text and it will apply the paragraph information to it. You can also wrap things in header tags. So this is just one more box in a box kind of dealy-bop thing, but it's not too crazy. So I'm going to go into my style and I'm actually going to create a header rule. And you can actually, I think if you go into CSS Designer here, you can actually, you can do it here. You can mess with it or in your selectors. I think it should be somewhere where it kind of pops up automatically. And you'll notice I haven't been showing you how to do things from here, but if you click on like some different rules here, your body rule, you'll notice you can actually change them from the CSS Designer. So you can bring up your color picker here and change all your stuff right here. And it's a little more straightforward, but I don't think it's as easy. I really want you to see it this way, but you can do it here. So now that I have line height property added, I can just click this and make it left aligned, click that and make it right aligned, click that and make it centered. So I kept that as a little bit of a secret because I didn't want you to get confused with it. I want you to see where it has to exist here. But once you've added the rule, you can definitely adjust them here. So let's actually click on this body rule real quick. And we can see that my type rule is kind of acting up. So let's try and see if we can. It looks like that one's kind of a little confused. So I can actually just delete that rule and it will go away. So no problems. We can actually, I think we can usually even hit plus and like add them and type them in, etc. But we'll leave that as it is. But just know you can come in here and change them from over here as well. It's a little easier to use the color picker over here. That's one thing that's true. But let's add a header property. So let's say I want the first like little chunk of this to be like a title and then sort of be bigger, maybe a different color, maybe bold, something like that. The way I can do that is go into my style, make a new rule, so just make sure it's not accidentally in someone else's rule, and we can type in, let's say, H1 for our first header tag, and then put our brackets, open them up, and now we can change it. So let's say we want it to be font size, and let's say we want it to be a little bit bigger than the other one, which was 14. Let's make it 20 point. Let's make the color a little different, just so we can really see it when we get there. Let's make it medium violet red. Make sure you close that off. And let's see what we can do. Font family, font kerning, font weight. Let's go to font weight. And we should be able to select bold. You can also do things like B, capitals, small caps, etc. But there we go. So we have enough that we'll be able to see this. Now to apply this H1 tag, all I have to do is find the text. It can be in other text that I want to apply it to and wrap it in the H1 tag. So if I hit that, it closed it automatically, but I'm just going to copy that. And I'm going to put it right here. And you'll notice, bam, I now have a header title. So all I did was wrap that chunk in that, and it's like, that's like literally in your mind, imagine using a highlighter pen and going, and just highlighting over it. That's essentially what that tag does. It grabs this little chunk of text and it says, apply the H1 rule, be fancy, highlighted. And there you go. So very easy. And then if I don't like that, I can easily change it. Maybe the size is too big and I just want to make it 18. You know, not so bad. Maybe I want to make it a little bit smaller. Let's make it 16. There we go. I liked it to kind of fall in one line. And you can't always control that. But I can also change, you know, there's so many other things I can change. There's another sort of complex thing. I'm only going to mention this once because I think it is a little confusing. But the reason these are called cascading style sheets is the rules apply in cascades, in layers. So you'll notice that in this H1 property, I didn't specify the line height like I did with the other one, but it absorbed it from the previous rule because that rule was on top of this rule. So there's a hierarchy to how it applies these rules. So sometimes if your rule's not showing up but a different rule is, it's because the hierarchy isn't right, where it's applying something over top of something else. So just be aware if you have an issue, it probably has something to do with that. But I don't want you to overthink that because you're not going to be getting that deep. But do realize you can add your header tags and you can make different ones. So I can also have an H2 tag or an H3 tag or an H4 tag or an H6 tag and apply them to different things as I go. But I think that's probably enough for styling. That should be plenty for those of you who are ahead to play with it and do a little bit. Look into some of these other styling things. So let's go back to this. Try out some of this other stuff, applying background colors to things, play with a little bit of that kind of stuff. You can actually create gradient backgrounds. So for those of you who didn't want to do a background tile, you can actually create a gradient background. So I'll apply that. That'll be the last thing I'll show. Instead of this sky blue, let's try and add a gradient background instead. And you do not have to do this. None of this stuff is required for the purpose of this assignment. I just want to kind of show you how to do it. So with gradients, sometimes you have to use specific code that is unique to each browser for the browser to understand it. Things are getting a little bit better so that you can usually just drop in the gradient like this, but that's confusing. Let's use a gradient generator so that we don't have to learn anything. Perfect. So we're going to do gradient, you can see it pops right up, gradient generator CSS. I think, let me see if there's one that I've used before. I might have used this color Zilla one before. Yes, this is the one I've used. So this is really cool because look how much code it is. It's a lot of code. You gotta copy a lot of things in there to get it to work. But you don't have to write any of that. All you gotta do is know where to paste it. So in this case, let's actually change our gradient. Let's stick with some of this aqua situation. There we go. So we've got that. I want it to be a horizontal gradient. And I want the size to be 1,000 pixels by, how high was my box? Let's look. I think it was 500, but welcome section, 500 pixels. All right, cool. So now what I'm going to just do, hold on. Why'd you do that? 1,000 by, it's deciding on its size. I don't know. We'll see if it stretches out. It should. And then all I should have to do is copy this code. And I should be able to add this in, and it should work. And I may have to go double check because I've done this before, but it's easy to miss something that you've done in the past. So let's find out where my background is. So welcome section. Let's remove this rule here and paste that in, and bam, magical gradient. That's all I had to do. Super easy. So now, when I save, this thing is looking like Technicolor Dream Wonderland. I'm sorry that it's so rainbow, but hopefully it kind of shows you some of the cool features. So now when I open it, you'll notice instead of just a solid pink background or a solid blue background, I have a gradient that's now applied with CSS.
Can I add a transparency like that?
Yes, you can. You can actually make it, even if you were doing a gradient with transparency, you can add that, and there are background transparency, so you could have it be just 10%. The only reason I'm kind of making you color the background so you can see the box. Just for your learning purposes, you can always remove that later if you don't like it, but it helps you see the sections where they end if there's any kind of chunky messed up issues. But let's see, here we go. So CSS borders, I guess I can't, where did my generator go? Oh, there it is. So this gradient generator, it does allow you to change the opacity of some different things. Let's cancel this. You should be able to change on the individuals here. You should be able to change them. But if not, there you can look up how to get transparency. So here we have one that's a white to clear transparency. And when I click on them, here's the opacities at the top. So you can change the opacity of the gradient itself and have a gradient that goes from solid to whatever. But you can see there's so many things in CSS that allow you to really customize it. You just got to look them up and kind of find them And then once you understand don't go too crazy yet, but once you understand the basic principles of where they're supposed to go, and you really do learn where to copy and paste them, it's all very, very easy stuff. So extra credit for this assignment will be doing things like this, having unique headers, different backgrounds, some etc. Some other kind of cool features, maybe rounded corners on some of your boxes or overlays or hovers or different kind of little fun things that you can figure out. But don't stress too much about that. I'm actually going to delete that code because I don't want this file to confuse you later. So we'll keep it really simple. We'll keep it like that. I'm going to hit save. Check out my website one last time, and this is the ColorZilla gradient generator, by the way. There's tons of great CSS generators out there for lots of things. And then when I double click this is the site, and this is where we're at. So if by next class you're able to get this section in, then you're on track, because the class after that, we're going to make 2 more sections, and we're going to have one with the swap image gallery, and then the other one's going to be almost a repeat of this, so it'll be very easy to figure out, I hope. But just keep with the basic concepts. Don't get yourself too confused, but that's all you need to worry about for next class.